And welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Trip Mitchell, joined as always by Randall Carlisle from the Odyssey House.
Good to be here.
And
I'm excited.
Well, I just want to say we have a very handsome guest here who got the memo on dressing up for television.
I know, but we missed it. You should have told us, Brian.
Right, yeah.
Now, are you old enough to remember Randall on TV?
Yes.
He always dressed
That makes him pretty old.
Yeah, I was gonna say. He always dressed very nicely.
Yes, he did. He had a lot of nice suits.
Yes, we were just discussing. And you've dressed up nicely, so I'll go ahead and have Randall introduce you.
He is one of our Odyssey House residential clients at a place we call Mill Creek, Brian Mercier, right?
Yes,
Did I
Brian
say that
Mercier.
right?
Yes, you did.
It's spelled like French. It should be Mercier, but Mercier.
French way.
Mercier.
Okay.
And you've been in our program for how long?
This time around, I've been there for 2 months.
You see what he just said, and that's so indicative. One of the points of this program is to understand the disease of addiction, and part of the disease of addiction is relapse. And this is his second time around at Odyssey. Maybe you could go into how you got in the first time, how you got out, what happened, got you back in.
Well, the first time I went to Odyssey House, my wife had passed away from stage 2 breast cancer.
Ooh.
And I really went downhill, and I started using the drugs real bad, and ended up.
By the way, Brian, how old were you and how old was she at the time?
I was 41 at the time, and she was 45.
So that had to be devastating.
Yes, it was pretty devastating. I started using drugs real bad and ended up down at the Rio Grande, what they call the block. And I was using heroin really bad, and just one day, before I ended up dead from an overdose on the street, I said I need to get some help. And there was a gentleman by the name, I can't remember his name, but he was down on the block doing the needle exchange, and I asked him, where can I go to get some help? And he mentioned Odyssey House, so I went down to the Odyssey Admissions building. And
Did that take a lot of courage?
Yeah, it did. And they said that you need to get sober. I had some warrants at the time, so I went and turned myself into jail. And I took care of my warrants first, and I ended up in the CATS program. And I graduated the CATS program, and they sent me up with the Odyssey House as my aftercare. And I was there in Odyssey the first time for 5 months.
So when you were in jail, first of all, you went down and turned yourself in.
Yeah.
And how much jail time did you have in total?
Well, they sentenced me to 180 days in CATS, early release upon completion. So
We should explain, CATS is a program in the Salt Lake County Jail that is run by Odyssey. And I'm trying to think what it stands for, Criminal Addictive Treatment Services or something like that. And what it is there are separate pods where people just in the CATS program at the jail go through basically the same things that people go through in our residential programs outside the jail. And it's a 3-month program.
yeah, at the Oxbow.
Yeah, at the Oxbow jail.
And is that easier time when you're in a program like that?
Yeah, it's easier time because you have something to do all day. You have the programs to do rather than just sit in your cell and daydream or read books. Yeah, it makes your time go by quicker.
And the other kind of amazing thing is that you have a skill set when you get out
Yes,
that will prevent you from going back theoretically.
exactly. Yeah.
And the other inmates you're with are just people in the CATS program. So
Yeah.
you're not in general population where
Yeah.
all sorts of things are going on.
So everybody there is trying to get their heads on straight in the addiction recovery.
So you get out of CATS, and so you're back. What happened after that?
I went straight from the jail down to the Odyssey Admissions building and self-admitted myself into Odyssey House.
That had to be a great feeling.
Yeah, I felt that CATS wasn't enough treatment for me, and then I didn't have no place to go also, so I figured to admit myself into CATS and get some better treatment would be the wise thing to do.
Did you feel like you had a pretty good head start compared with someone who normally goes to Odyssey who maybe has not had any?
Yeah, well, CATS, being that I was in the CATS, it has this the same kind of levels as Odyssey House, so.
There's a lingo that we use at Odyssey House
Yeah.
that until you've been to Odyssey House, you don't understand. The first couple of when I started working, the first couple of groups I sat in on, I'm listening to everybody talk, and they're using words like breaker and the different levels, because when you go in, there's like what, 4 or 5 different levels.
Yeah, your structure. You go start with orientation, then compass, compass senior, disco, and navigator, and then Voyager.
So
then
he would have had an advantage because you would have heard of that in the CATS program.
Yeah, I made it to Voyager last time.
And
This time I'm hoping to make it to graduate.
so that was your first time through.
First time
How
through.
did you walk out, or did they throw you out?
Well,
or
no,
what?
I was what you call LACA, leaving against clinical advice. I kind of, I went LACA, and just before, 2-3 more months I would have graduated. But I ended up relapsing, going LACA and relapsing.
So if you hadn't walked out, you think the relapse wouldn't have happened?
No, it wouldn't have happened. If I would have went to transitional housing and
What was your
kept-
thought? Just you're thinking to yourself, and just I'm in the same boat. I've relapsed numerous times,
Yeah.
and
So have I.
yeah, that thinking that in my case, what could go wrong if I have a beer?
Yeah, that's what,
And the answer is many things. But
many things. Yes.
but in your case, what was the thought process when you said, "Hey, I'm getting out of here"?
Because
Well,
going LACA is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I was excited just getting out and going home and being around old friends, and that's what was my problem. My old friends, they drank. I started up drinking first, and they were drinkers, and that which led me to relapse on heroin, which was.
And one of the things, as you know about addiction, is that you can't stop with one.
No, not at all.
And a lot of people,
One beer, one shot of heroin, then I'm done.
Then
Yeah.
I'm done, yeah.
yeah, that ability does not seem to be part of her. And people look at marijuana as being a very harmless drug, and for many
A lot
people,
of people do.
and that's a mistake.
Yeah, I think it is, especially what they call dab or whatever stuff like that. I think they're kind of hypocritical. They judge other people that use drugs, but while they're using drugs, or the marijuana or the dab, it's kind of hypocritical to me.
Yeah, and the best advice is you've got to cut everything.
Everything, yeah.
And I was joking with Randall on the phone that if I'm trying to avoid as much sugar as possible, that first cookie, literally after dinner, leads to more. Now, not the most serious thing in the world, but it's funny, if you don't have the first one, you don't have to worry about
Well,
the
that's
next
kind
one.
of my addiction now, is cookie and sweets in Odyssey, because there's a lot of cookies. Can't just have one.
But better that than heroin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to do a TV show with a heart surgeon over in Hawaii, and she always said that sugar is the most addictive drug of any.
Oh.
And it's funny, but when you have that in your system, so you relapse. When did you know you were in serious trouble during your
Well,
relapse? Was it pretty quick?
Well, I ended up, going to work on drugs, high, and ended up getting suspended from work for a while, and then lost my place to live, and I'm sitting out on the street in the cold, and I'm sticking a needle in my arm and not wanting to live, and I just said, you know what, I need to go get some help. And I went to Damon, that's his name, I remember his name, Damon, which is with
Damon,
Odyssey,
sure,
at the needle exchange. I said, Damon, I need some help, and he set me up with Odyssey again. So
Cool. And you've been in for how long?
2 months now.
2 months.
So in talking prior to the show, you mentioned that, and it's kind of contrary to what you would think, that finding drugs inside jail is not hard to do.
No, it's not hard to do. A lot of people, probably 75% of the people that go into jail are addicts and are
75%?
yeah, that go in are addicts.
I would believe that.
Yeah,
That's an
and,
astounding number.
Yeah, and they.
Because the crimes are fueled while you're high, or for searching for breaking into a house to steal something so you can cash it in for money so you can buy
Exactly.
drugs.
They're
You
all
know,
addicts.
it's a-
So literally, if we could solve addiction, which we're not going to do in the near, that is that. But literally, the crime problem that we have, not only here in Salt Lake and Utah, nationwide, could be changed.
astounding. Yeah, it's quite high, but yeah,
So-
a lot of people that go in they're addicted to the drugs real bad, and they can smuggle it in real easy just by swallowing it, which a lot of it gets in.
Describe that. I mean, okay, without getting too gross. What I mean,
Well,
so I'm going to visit the Salt Lake County Jail.
Yeah, They sell them in little plastic things, or $10 or $20 worth. They wrap them up in plastic. They seal them airtight, and they just pop them in their mouth and swallow them if the cops come. Which they swallow them and they end up going to jail. And they sit on the toilet and they'll poop and they'll dig them out of their feces and sell them to the inmates for commissary. You know.
How much? Like a.
They'll take $20 worth and make $100 off of it. Just a little $20 chunk. $100 a commissary.
And that'll get you high for how long?
Oh well, maybe two times. On 20, keep you well for a day or day and a half.
And how much drugs is going on in jail? I mean, would you say that? So, of the inmate community, 75% are addicts.
Yeah.
How many during a given day would be high in jail?
There'll be about at least 10 people that come in with drugs.
Every day?
Every day.
And then they're
go to
pooping out the drugs. And
yeah, they go to quarantine first. Quarantine is where they send them so they can withdraw off their drugs.
Right.
And quarantine is the best place to get all the drugs. That's because that's where they're all going.
So where, if $20 worth of product is sold for $50 or $100 in jail, where do the other people in jail get that kind of money to buy the drugs?
They have people put their money on their books, or they have the people put money on the person that's got the drugs books. So they'll have it to buy commissary with. So they'll get on the phone with their people on the outside and say, hey, will you put money on this person's books? And they'll say, okay, I owe him money. And
so no money's exchanged there, but the
But
person in jail knows that that was put on his books and then gives you the drugs.
Explain how the commissary works for folks who have never had anyone in jail or no experience.
Well, you have money on your books. They have a commissary list where you can get sweets, soups, crackers, cheese whiz, stuff like that. And like a soup is $1. You get candy bars for $1.20. It's weird. It costs more than a soup, but yeah, it's where they can. They're limited. They're limited in each.
So they sell cigarettes?
Each pod, yeah. No, they don't sell cigarettes in there.
So there are no cigarettes at all in jail?
No cigarettes.
That has to be a very tough adjustment.
If there's a will, there's a way. There's a lot of chewing tobacco gets in there, and usually gets in there by somebody that works for the jail.
Gosh, it's a little discouraging. I mean, one would think that you could limit that.
You would think there'd be better control behind bars, but you're talking about a huge population, with a limited number of corrections officers.
So you were in your time in jail, because of the fact you're associated with Odyssey House, you didn't mix with the general population. That had to make going to sleep at night a little safer.
A lot easier, yeah, because I wasn't in the same. Because Oxbow jails is about a block and a half up from the actual main jail, so that's where they send everybody that's in the CAS program is the Oxbow. So the people don't get drugs into that one.
Okay, the pods are. It's like you're not in cells. It's like
they hold 48 people.
Yeah, it's a two level place with like beds going around in sort of like a half circle
per little cell. There's eight bed cells.
Okay, so it is sounds like an amazing program because it gives you the skill set when you get out.
Yeah, it does.
To really minimize your chance of going back in. But the number that just throws me off, Randall, 75% of.
I don't know if they're all addicts, but I would say that percentage of crimes is fueled by addiction or a crime involving the sale of or the obtaining the drugs.
And alcohol is a big part of it.
Sure,
I mean, you look at a number of different crimes that just every day when you read the website, crimes are fueled by alcohol.
Domestic violence situations are almost always fueled by somebody who's high on either booze or drugs.
Alcohol or drugs, yeah.
I mean, every time you read it, like a SWAT standoff, it's almost the person involved in the standoff is almost always high on something, because it's not normal to want to commit suicide by cop,
that happens a lot too, fueled by drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, an average person doesn't sit there and say, okay, I'm going to beat up my wife or my husband or whatever, and then I'm going to barricade myself in a house with a gun and fire at officers, knowing full well what the end result could be. You know, and so when you're high, you're more likely to do something like that. You know,
a lot of people do that, fueled by drugs.
Yeah, and it's incredible. So if you're watching at home and you have someone in your family, friends, who you think is behaving a little bit strangely, has some challenges, maybe the stories don't all add up, there's a number to call, and it's right here at the bottom of the screen, and that's Odyssey House. And Odyssey House, Randall, you're lucky enough to work there, has some amazing programs, but most important, it'll be someone to talk to.
exactly. And this isn't just to talk about Odyssey House. I mean, Odyssey House doesn't work for everyone, right? I mean,
It's a tough program.
It's a tough program.
It's the toughest out there. There are other programs, but it's the toughest program.
But if you make it through Odyssey House, I've heard a lot of people say if you can make it through Odyssey's residential program and graduate or complete and hopefully graduate, you can do anything in life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I've been sober for 6.5 going on 7 years, and I see the program, I know the people, I know the rules, and it would be very difficult for me to get through it because I would fight some of the rules. You know.
It's hard. It's hard not to, but it is what you make it. If you go in there fully wanting to get sober and get well and do the program correctly, you can get through real easy.
Well, it's interesting that talking about relapse, and that is a big part of a lot of addicts' lives. And one of the great things about the addiction community is the fact that they will take you back. You don't have to be embarrassed because it is something that a lot of people go. There are a lot of people who get sober the first time, get off drugs, and never go back. But they're probably not in the majority.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people in there, staff that you get attached to. And this time when I went back, they were there with their arms open, gave me a big hug, and they were glad that I was there. I mean, I lost 50 pounds just in 6 months. I was out, on the streets there. So they barely recognized me, but they were there with their arms open, gave me a big hug, and
that had to be a great feeling.
it was a good feeling.
The recovery community is a huge community. When you combine like people who have completed programs at Odyssey and the other treatment centers and AA people, and then there's so many supportive groups that have formed, and generally they are comprised of people who are in recovery. Expensive table here you have for the set here.
I know. We the piece of gum that was holding it on unfortunately calcified, so it's not here any longer.
Like he was talking about the needle exchange, the syringe exchange, and there's a group that is just dedicated to that, and they set up in different places every week.
Yeah, there's several people that it's called their labor of love. It's when they're in the last level Odyssey House, they'll do their labor of love and go downtown and do the needle exchange and go around and pick up syringes and paraphernalia off the ground and just help the community down there. Try to help some people get
It's part of a concept, and I had trouble grasping this at first. It's called harm reduction, and it basically is saying, okay, there are going to be people who are addicted and staying on drugs out there, and should they die on the street with a dirty needle or getting hepatitis or whatever, and if they are going to be out there, is there something we can do to keep them more healthy and alive? And a lot of people, it upsets a lot of people that you go out there and you give an addict fresh needles to continue their addiction. But if you take the choice, us as human beings, if you take the choice of that, or saying, well, okay, you're an addict, so you should die from AIDS or hepatitis or whatever, the human approach is to say, here's some clean needles. We're not encouraging you to be.
Well, and the other thing is there's certain people in law enforcement, not in this state, thank God, who would prevent their deputies from carrying Narcan around. And it was a judgmental kind of a philosophy that those people aren't worth saving, which is
they're going to die of an overdose, let them die.
Exactly. And you see it, Randall, you see it, I've seen it, where people come back from the edge, and that edge is I mean, they're close to death.
And it's a good thing with the needle exchange. They do give you Narcan if you see some. Because I've helped a couple people OD'd with Narcan and saved their lives down there on the block.
So tell me about that. What happened?
Well, I was just happened to walk down the sidewalk where everybody sleeps up by the fence, and I seen an individual that was just laying there purple. His face was purple, he was pale, and he wasn't breathing. And so I reached in and got my little care package I gave you at the needle exchange and got my Narcan and injected it into his knee. It took two injections before I came back, but I brought him back to life.
Wow.
It worked.
Why his knee?
Well, you want to go in a good place with muscle.
Oh, I see.
So it'll get into your body a lot quicker, your bloodstream.
And that had to be an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Is that individual around now?
Yeah, he's still alive. He thanked me, and he got clean right after that. He never used drugs ever since after that.
Wow.
It scared the crap out of him.
There's a group called Utah Naloxone, headed up by a doctor, Dr. Jennifer Plum, who has been instrumental in getting almost every.
She was on the 60 Minutes.
Yeah, she was on 60 Minutes. I know her very well, and she works up at Primary Children's, an emergency room pediatric doctor, and she has persuaded almost every emergency responder and every police department to come equipped with naloxone, and it's saving so many lives. As a matter of fact, last year was the first year we had a decrease in opioid deaths. We've been ranked in the top 10 for years now, and we dropped a few notches, and I think it's because of that.
Yeah.
Well, that is fabulous, and
The thing you don't, what's really cool is what he just said, is because I've talked to some other people in our program, is that people who are heroin addicts will carry that around, not for themselves because they can't use it if they're overdosing, but to save some of their buddies, because people hang out and do that together.
A lot of people down there do. They hang out in groups. It's crazy how many people do it.
is that changed demonstrably with kind of the new push by the state government, county, and the city of Salt Lake?
Yeah, it's changed dramatic down there. It's cleaned up a lot. Like a few years ago, there's probably 900 to 1,000 people down there, and since they've done the Rio Grande and cleaned it up, there's probably maybe 150, a handful of people down there now.
Wow.
So it's a dramatic change. They've cleaned up a lot.
Well, that's fantastic. And, you know, Randall, Odyssey House does some amazing things. Can you talk a little bit about Odyssey House and some of the programs that you have?
We have, on an average day, we treat 750 people. I was surprised. Does that surprise you? I mean, that's a huge number. We now have 17 different locations that we operate on.
When we started this show, there were 13.
We keep acquiring, we need more space, but what we really need is more social workers. I mean, we can get into that if you want, but one of the reasons that treatment centers can't expand right now is, according to law, state law or regulations, whatever, you need so many social workers per number of clients. And social workers are in such demand right now that none of the treatment centers can expand because they can't find staff, as opposed to, there's plenty of potential clients, but if you don't have space and you don't have the right staff mix, you can't expand. So anyway, we have, the programs are, we've talked a lot about the residential program, and he's in one. We have 3 separate residential programs, but some of the other, I wouldn't call them boutique programs, but we have an adolescent residential program. We have a mothers with kids program, a fathers with kids program, and they're residential. And so, for instance, if you have a child and you get busted for drugs or whatever, and your child's taken away and put in foster care, if you can get into our Parents with Kids program, we work through DCFS and we get the child back in with the parent. While the parent's going through therapy, the child goes down to our child service place every day, and they've suffered some trauma because they've been with the parent who does drugs. They get help with that while their parents are getting help. Then they come back at the end of every day and they're together. They cook meals together and they sleep in the same room. And
it's a wonderful program.
It's really cool. It's And the motivation there, we have a really high success rate in that program because the mothers or the fathers know that if they screw up, their child is going to go away, possibly for good. And so there's this little creature here that's a heck of a motivation.
It's quite the motivation, and people at the parents program, they're gung ho to get their child back and get clean and sober and live a better life with their children. I really admire that program, the parents program. I'm glad they have it. And then there's also they have the outpatient program.
I forgot to mention that.
The Odyssey outpatient program. There's quite a few people
I think
in the Odyssey outpatient.
any chance you're going to get Randall's job because you seem to be
Yeah,
better at this.
he does. Yeah.
No, okay.
But yeah, the outpatient program. There's quite a few people in it. Here's when you're inpatient at the residential, when you voyage out, you go to outpatient in the sober living, and it's 3 to 6 months in the outpatient. So before you graduate.
One of the things about Odyssey House, which is different from some of the for-profit addiction centers, and is that when you go to, we joke about the one in Malibu with the hot tubs and the chefs and all that. That's
And a
30
massage
days.
every day. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
It's 30 days, but you take many, many years to become an addict. You can't recover in 30 days.
No.
And with Odyssey House, there's no set time. It's when you are ready.
Yeah, it's when you're ready. You yourself is how you make your program. If you're in there and you're willing to get yourself straight and clean, it moves along a lot quicker and smoothly. But if you're in there and you just have this attitude and you don't care, some people take up to 2 years to complete the program because they're just not capable of doing it. They're not ready. So.
And the great thing about Odyssey House, and as Randall said, 750 people being treated right now. But think about, that's 1,500 parents. That's kids, that's family, that's friends. Those 750 people affect a lot of lives.
Yeah.
And if they're clean and sober with no drugs at the end, they can be a very productive, amazing member of society.
Exactly.
And affecting people in a very positive manner.
Yeah. It's very effective.
So
not to mention saving money. I mean, you're talking.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen estimates that for every dollar invested in treatment, in the long run, it'll save between $7 and $12 to society. Jail costs, arresting people, people going to emergency rooms with an overdose. I mean, it's a whole slew of things that cost society a lot of money. And when somebody gets out of a treatment program like ours, they generally go to transitional housing, and they always have to have some kind of job. Well, job means you're paying taxes. So, I mean, it's as opposed to sucking from society, you're giving back.
They had the chairman of the Fed on 60 Minutes on Sunday, and he talked about one of the limiting factors in our economy, while we're never going to see 4 and 5% growth, is the number of people who are incarcerated.
Right.
Yeah, what kind of contribution are they making?
Exactly, and it's tremendous. So, if again both Randall and I do this as our labor of love, we want to get back to the community, but
We're not getting paid for this.
we are not.
Even though we're great talent, no, we're not.
We're getting paid what we're worth, talent-wise. But this is a situation, if you know someone who's having challenges, and we all do, this cuts across every demographic, race, creed, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
People, addiction is a disease. The vast majority of people in the medical profession feel that.
And it's not a moral decision. I hear that from people still, that, you know, okay, you made the decision to drink at the beginning, or to do heroin at the beginning, but we didn't make the decisions to become alcoholics or heroin addicts, right?
No.
And it's a disease, as you say. It's not a moral failing. You know.
So if you need to help someone that you're close to with that disease, the easiest thing is to call Odyssey House, and the number is at the bottom of the screen, and reach out. They're people who will give you some great advice. There are tons of options out there. And it's the type of call that you make and you'll feel really good afterwards.
And we should point out, you know, we're in network for almost every major insurance company, and we accept Medicaid, We have a lot of county funding, and basically, if somebody needs to get in, they probably can. Plus, we're the lowest cost program out there. You know, I think our average, if you came in paying cash, which very few people do, I think it'd be around, I think it's about $6,000 a month, and that includes. So you're living there, so that's 3 meals a day. You're living in a reasonably nice place. It's not posh, and you're getting good heavy therapy, and that's
7 days a week.
7 days a week, yeah. And if you check into, I think the average in for-profit places averages anywhere between 20 and 50,000 a month.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
You know, so that's a big difference.
You know, Randall's a businessman. Hot tubs are not cheap.
Well,
No,
hot tubs and massages.
I'm being totally facetious because I have my brother-in-law runs a couple facilities, and these are dedicated people as well. It's just
Sure.
It's a different approach.
You know, our philosophy is that probably the type of quarters you live in and the type of life you lead in Odyssey is closer to what the average person lives.
Yeah.
As opposed to going to a posh resort kind of place and having 30 days or 60 days and then going back to your life, which is not the same as it was in treatment. And so it's a hard, transition to make and stay sober. Whereas if you can stay sober in our environment, then you go back to your normal life. It's a lot easier. I guess I'd call ours a more realistic approach to life.
Yeah, Odyssey has a lot of treatment to help you get back out in the street on your own, such as your sneaky behaviors that you have when you're out there on the streets. You know, they help you work on your to modify your behaviors in the correct way. So when you're ready to go out into society, you'll have those tools to work with.
Sure, and that'll make you a better employee and citizen.
On all levels, yes.
There's no better liar than an addict or an alcoholic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
down. And next time you come back on the show, Randall and I will be in tie.
Yeah, but see, he'll come back next time with no tie. He'll say, those guys didn't wear a tie last
Right.
night.
You know, darn it. Well, we're going to make sure all the memos go out. For Randall Carlisle, I'm Trip Mitchell. Thanks for watching. And again, if you have someone who's suffering from addiction, give this number a call. Talk to the folks at Odyssey House.
Please do.
They will get you some good advice.
Or go to our website at odysseyhouse.org.
Perfect.
You know, and the number, which I have memorized now, even though it's on the bottom of the screen, is 801-322-3222. How's that?
That's an easy number.
That's the
Easy
best I
number
can
to remember. Please give them a call.
We want to thank Lee, our producer, Bill Francis with Comcast 17. Thanks to Randall. We've had a lot of fun, and again, we like to show the other side. Addiction has a lot of negatives. You turn on the 6 o'clock news every night, you're going to see that. But when you have guests like we have here who are making an amazing difference, it makes me feel really good.
The point is, there is hope and there is recovery, and it's out there if you just go after
We
it.
are recovery.
That's our slogan, yeah.
We are recovery.
Thanks for watching. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful day.